Welcome to the Andy Staples Show. Happy return from the weekend. Ari Wasserman, we have not talked in a while. Some big things have happened since then. None bigger than this statement by one Kirk Big Daddy Ferentz.
As I stand here today, I anticipate no changes in our staff moving forward. That's my plan, certainly. I think we do have a terrific staff, and I thought they did a great job last year in tough circumstances and, navigated us through, I think, some big challenges. I thought our guys really coached at a high level.
Victory!
Andy, it's just like we thought that we would have to come up with new material next year.
Nope.
And nope. We'll just play the hits, man. I mean, I don't know. That statement, I just wish I could have been in the room.
That's a very sly way of saying the players stunk, but the coaches were okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, what were the tough circumstances? But I want to know, what happened to Scott's body when that happened?
Poor Scott Docterman.
I'm trying to think. What are the physical bodily results that could come from that?
Well, here's the thing. As the beat writer, you're tired of answering the same question over and over. And yes, Scott is going to get that question. Why is Brian Ferentz still the offensive coordinator? He's going to get it over and over and over again. But he is going to have a gold mine of material again because it's going to be the same scheme. And I'm not sure I believe Kirk when he says the players stunk, because whatever Kirk claims he said the players stunk. Right. He just said the players on offense stunk. I'm not saying that. I think the coaching probably stunk and the players were probably okay. But he said the players stunk.
Yeah, but even if the players stunk, the level in which Iowa's offense was bad transcended just poor personnel. Right. Because even if you have poor personnel for Iowa standard, like some of the teams that they struggled with to score any points at all, I mean, I feel like it's unequivocally the coaching. So, I'm very curious to see if there's anything that can be done to make it more potent. Maybe potent isn't the right word, but more functional or less dysfunctional.
There's somewhere between impotent and potent. And you're probably
you read ads about it. Yeah. If you're an Iowa fan, go to Roman.com and I don't know.
No. We never no. No. We don't joke about that. But seriously, this is the problem here. There has to be something better. But I'm curious about this. To me, what made Iowa's offense and his struggles so fascinating last year was the fact that Iowa's defense was so good. Now, they lose some really good players on that defense. Phil Parker's still there, obviously, so he seems to put a good defense on the field every year. But is it possible for the defense to be that dominant again if the offense is that bad? Because, I mean, overcoming an offense that bad to have a defense that good is an incredible feat.
They've already beaten the odds in frequency in which they scored, right?
Right.
So when you say, can you do it again? I mean, I think that every time Iowa scored a touchdown defensively on the second half of the season, I was like, this is already beating the odds of what should occur. Because I don't care how good your defense is. Scoring touchdowns is something that happens by happenstance a lot of the times. Like you can't control,
or your defense scores in the case of Iowa.
No, but I'm saying Iowa's defensive touchdowns. Like I don't know if the hallmark of the best defenses in college football history they score a lot of touchdowns.
No.
So I think the fact that they scored a lot of touchdowns was obviously in part because they were a very good defense, but also in part because of circumstance and luck. The same way that you can't predict a big play or a broken coverage on offense, you certainly can't count on defense scoring. So, I think they scored more touchdowns on defense than the entire receiver room combined. And it's just like, I don't know if it's even possible for that to happen again. And that's what makes it the hardest thing about Iowa last year is that if they had even a semi-competent offensive scheme, the team would have played in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, I know people get sick. Well, some people get sick of us talking about Iowa, and the others that just enjoy the hell out of it. But that was the part that made it so interesting to me. And if the defense is just average and the offense is the same as it was, I'm not sure you're going to get as much Iowa content next year. It's the difference. It's the dichotomy that makes it interesting.
If they just stink, then they stink. Yeah.
Right.
the thing that I have an interesting thought of is Kirk Ferentz is the longest tenured head coach in college football, right?
He is, yes.
This almost seemed to me, and tell me if I'm talking out of school here, but as a consumer, I don't cover Iowa. Scott knows more about this than I do. But I can't imagine that Kirk Ferentz is going to be the coach there for another decade, right? I mean,
No.
maybe, but my thought would be that he wouldn't be. So this might be I'm going to stick with my kid and I'm going to go down with my kid and this is going to be the end, or we're going to fight through it and I'm going to be a genius again. And no matter what it is, like his legacy and what he's done for Iowa is not going to change.
Mm-hmm. And another 10-win season buys him 5 more years of this if he wants. Now, Nick Mason in the chat, good question. Any reason to think Cade McNamara will help the offense? He certainly might. But here's the thing. If I'm a good receiver, I don't want to play in that offense. So you've had how many years of receivers seeing this and either leaving, a la Charlie Jones, or just not coming, a la the people they were recruiting. And you wind up in a situation where you don't have that much. Now, the tight end room at Iowa always seems to be stocked, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no reason to believe it won't be. But I don't know. Cade McNamara's got to have a better offensive line in front of him. That's been one of their biggest problems. Even a couple of years ago when they had Tyler Linderbaum, who was the best center in college football, the other 4 around him weren't great.
I wonder if Cade McNamara went to Iowa understanding the score or if he was taken back by this.
I think he went there understanding. He didn't seem to have any doubts in his mind. And Kirk Ferentz, for the critiques we give him on this show, does not strike me as someone who's going to mislead somebody on that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, not even just misled, just like kind of like we're going to work through it and give the same answer that he gave to Doug, which is I have a policy of doing it only in the offseason. Staff changes have always occurred in the offseason. We haven't made all of our decisions yet. And, we'll go, week by week and we'll figure out what we want to do. And, you can come but there's no guarantee either way. That's not dishonest. Yeah. It's just, I wonder if he gave it any thought at all, Andy. And it doesn't seem like he did.
So Chris Callahan says, when of the Iowa boosters put pressure on Kirk like you'd see in an SEC school? It doesn't work that way at Iowa because Kirk's contract is so big. There's nothing they can do. This is very similar to the Texas A&M Jimbo situation. The numbers aren't as big, but they may as well be. It's the same thing. It's a number that is unmanageable that you're not.
It's about percentage of what you bring in and what you can afford and what is owed. That's important, not the number.
Right. I mean, look, I was in the Big Ten. All Big Ten schools are rich, but Kirk Ferentz's contract runs through 2031. It's not really any different than Jimbo Fisher.
Right.
So
the one thing we will say though, and we said this when we were speculating about it, Iowa has become much watched football now. So for better or worse,
yep.
It's kind of like watching true crime documentary. You're not glorifying what happened, but you're genuinely interested in what's going on. It's just
exactly.
It's going to be something that we hopefully get together for, in 6 or 7 months.
So it has been a hell of a week for Doctorman. I mean, he's got that. He had the Boys and Girls Club incident with the men's basketball. That was fantastic, by the way Iowa handled that. We criticized the Iowa athletic department plenty here. So let's give them their props for this one. So here's what happened. The Illinois student section, the Orange Crush, decided to buy a block of tickets for the Illinois at Iowa basketball game this past weekend. And that'd be fine, but you can't do it in your own name because they're just not going to sell them to you. And if you do a false name, that's probably not a good thing either, especially if the false name is the name of a charity. So they bought them at a group discount saying they were buying for the Boys and Girls Club. Well, you can't do that. That's not cool. So Iowa's athletic department finds out, voids the tickets. They then give the tickets to the Cedar Rapids Boys and Girls Club and then bring them out on the court during the game. That was outstanding. So
yeah.
You got that. Doctorman was covering Caitlin Clark dropping 42, I think, on Maryland. Have you watched her play?
I have. I've seen her highlights.
She's so
insane.
Freaking swaggy.
I know.
It's incredible.
She just pulls up from half court and drains it too, doesn't she?
It's unreal. She's like 30-footer, don't care.
Is she like the best college basketball player there is?
Right now, yes. Men's or women's? I think so. Yeah.
Well,
It's
I'll
just
be
the most
honest.
fun to watch.
I watched some college basketball on Saturday as I kind of sorted through my feelings of
I
what do I
watched a
do
bunch
without
of it.
football.
I watched a bunch of it too.
It is like, and listen, if you like college basketball, all the power to you. I find it incredibly hard to watch.
Just
They
because
they
the
miss.
players aren't as good as the
They're
NBA.
not very. It's sloppy. There's crappy turnovers. The officiating's terrible. Nobody can knock down a shot. There isn't a ton of high athleticism plays that you get in the NBA. And I'm not saying that it has to be the best version. Like, I like watching college football better than the NFL, even though the NFL players are more skillful.
Right.
But I just think it's a bad product.
I don't know, with football, college to NFL, sometimes I feel like the NFL players are almost too good. Like the defensive players are so big and so fast that it so limits what you can do offensively.
And I've also heard
teams.
people criticize the NBA that way, where they're like, well, these guys are so good and they make most of their shots and they play offense and defense so soundly that it's not as entertaining. And maybe some people like the college basketball equivalent of grab ass. I just don't find myself, balls off of the knee and turnovers and dribbling it off your leg and all that. I don't find that to be entertaining. So
I think of the leagues, like the Big 12 is probably the most fun to watch in conference play because it is all the teams are fairly. This is actually what I keep telling you what Big 12 football is going to be. The difference is in this case, these teams are all kind of at the top of the country. Like I forget where the lowest one is ranked in the net. But I think Oklahoma was the lowest ranked team they had in the net, and they just beat Alabama. So like it's night in, night
Alabama's
out
rolling tide in basketball, apparently.
Right, Alabama's been very good. Yeah. So,
but I watched the Florida basketball game last night for no particular reason.
Sorry about that. The Florida Kentucky one.
Yeah,
and
Florida
Kentucky's not great this year either.
Florida had 9 points with 7 minutes left in the first half, and I'm just like, I can't do this anymore.
They played a 54-52 game against Texas A&M not long ago. So there you go.
They just beat somebody really good too. So they were like,
they beat Tennessee last week. They beat Tennessee last week and went up like 9 spots in the net. So it is amazing, when you drop into college basketball and guys, just wait for the when you get to the tournament and you get dropped in, because most of you probably haven't been watching at all. So
that's when it's fun. Like the drama that comes from the NCAA tournament is what makes college basketball more fun. I just don't know how people watch this game in February and January.
Well, I think it's going to get better as it gets closer to tournament. Because remember, you've got young players, they transfer more than college football players. So
do they?
These teams don't. Well, I mean, percentage wise, there's only 13 roster spots. So the teams don't even kind of fully form until February. So I'll be interested to see what happens going forward.
My favorite pastime as a college basketball fan is seeing a matchup of Florida and Kentucky on the television guide and then hitting it and then seeing the records of both teams and being like, Kentucky has 10 losses or 9 losses. Like I was anticipating that being the top 5 team like they always are. And it's like they stink now, apparently.
They don't stink. They've actually had a nice last few weeks. They were very much struggling at the beginning of the SEC schedule. Like they lost to South Carolina, just shockingly. But they got destroyed by Alabama. And then our Dana O'Neill at The Athletic wrote an incredible column comparing John Calipari to Jimbo Fisher. And if you haven't read that, go read it, because like I know everybody who listens to this show understands exactly what the deal is with Jimbo Fisher. I was shocked at the parallels, like right down to an unnamed coach who had played Kentucky this year going, he needs an offensive coordinator, talking about Cal.
It's funny, Andy, because like all these names come up. I couldn't even name the head coach of Indiana's basketball program right now. Like I used to cover the sport 7 years ago, and went to every single Ohio State basketball game for 2 years. Rode home and away.
No love for Mike Woodson, who led the Hoosiers to a win against.
Did you just look that up
on Saturday? No, I knew that one.
Okay, yeah.
It is a fairly important job in the college basketball world.
Is Painter still the head coach at
Yes, Painter is still the head coach at Purdue. Yes.
So like I don't even know the coaches anymore. I've lost that much touch.
I went to middle school with a guy named Matt Painter who looks nothing like the Purdue coach Matt Painter, and every time it just bothers me.
He does have that sick, slicked hair look,
Yeah.
I wish I could.
Well, you have to. Gene Katie did, so you gotta.
Yeah.
You got to pay homage.
Well, he had the Just for Men thing going on too, right?
Gene Katie, yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and they wear athleisure now on the court too. That's the thing the pandemic brought us. Like coaches, every coach dresses like Bob Huggins now. So
Andy, I gotta say this.
Yeah.
Because I've thought about Just for Men a lot.
Okay. Why?
Because like I have white
gray?
hair. I have some grays on my side.
Okay.
I mean, I'm still in good shape, but women find salt and pepper very attractive.
Correct.
Especially if you've got black hair. And I feel like Just for Men is always like jet black. I don't know how that company stays in business because you're trying to improve something that women like. You're trying to change something that women like.
But everybody has their thing. Everybody has the thing about them that they hate that they would change. And there are guys who have grays and they want to get rid of them. And they think for some reason somebody doesn't like them. And I agree with you. I think if you ask most women, they would say salt and pepper hair on a dark-haired guy is an attractive thing. But there are guys that are like, nope, can't do it. Can't admit I'm getting old. I'm telling you right now, because I've got more grays than I'd like to admit coming in now. But I'm just going to go gray. Like I'm going to let it go. There's not going to be any dying. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Also, too, like you'd be a very handsome salt and pepper kind of guy. You got to get the salt and pepper beard going. You got to do that. Like who's the dude?
I can't. Mine would come in like 17 different colors.
You got to let it. You got to let it ride.
Nah, I'm good clean shaven. I am good clean shaven. I'm going to stick with that. All right, we have a great question. That's it. Oh, there we go. So we got a great question from Matthew C. Did Nick Saban just hire his Brian Schottenheimer? We are going to answer that question when we come back. Be right back. I was talking to my wife about my workout routines the other day, and she said, "You should start doing some yoga." I said, "Yeah, you're right. I should." And then I didn't even think about how will I find yoga? Where do I need to go to a studio? I don't even have to worry about that because I am a Peloton member. If I need a yoga workout, I flip on my Peloton app and I find hundreds of yoga workouts that fit my schedule, that fit my ability level, and that make me work because they've got it all. I know what you're thinking. You hear Peloton, you're like, that's the bike. Well, it is the bike, but it's also the treadmill. It's also the free weight workouts. It's the boot camp workouts. They've got something for everybody. I've got to go on a trip this week. I'll be in a hotel gym. There will be tread boot camp workouts with Adrian Williams and Jess Sims that will be as hard as anything I can do in a regular gym. And dumbbells only go up to 50 pounds in the hotel gym. But guess what? I am going to be working my butt off because those guys know how to push you and they know what you're dealing with. That's the thing. Peloton understands that professionals need to be able to fit stuff into a schedule. They need to be able to do it on the road. That busy working parents don't have time sometimes to do an hour and a half or 2 hours or go make an appointment with a personal trainer. Peloton, you just pop open the app. There is a workout there that you can do, that you can fit into your schedule. And trust me, it works. Try Peloton risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial. That's onepeloton.com/home-trial. Just do it. You will find a workout that works for you. Sometimes that's the hardest part. Well, they take care of all that. onepeloton.com/home-trial. Welcome back. So the other big news over the weekend, well, late last week over the weekend, Tommy Rees, your new offensive coordinator at Alabama, former Notre Dame offensive coordinator, former Notre Dame quarterback. He is now the Crimson Tide offensive coordinator after Nick Saban. They talked to quite a few people. It sounds like they looked at Jeff Lebby from Oklahoma, Ryan Grubb from Washington, Joe Moorhead, who's the head coach at Akron now, but he's been the OC at Penn State and Oregon, and also the head coach at Mississippi State. This is an interesting one, Ari, because, you know, I guess after Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley moved, like we should never be surprised at moves like this. But this feels like one that if you got the OC job at Notre Dame, you probably don't. I would assume you don't leave till you're a head coach, but this is a move in parallel.
So the thing about being the offensive coordinator, and the reason why I was kind of surprised when Grubb didn't leave Washington, is that if you are the offensive coordinator at Alabama, it is like turbocharging your path to being a head coach, right?
Yes.
Like it's like if that's what your path is or your goal is as a coach, and you get offered the job to be Alabama's defensive or offensive coordinator, I feel like that's almost as close to being a head coach as you could possibly get, because people love hiring off the Saban tree, or they love hiring people who have worked for Saban. And of course, the results, in my opinion, are probably easier to get there than at other places. Is that a fair statement?
Well, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, not a great run. Pete Golding has moved on to Ole Miss, which is not even a parallel move, so that we can read between the lines on that one. Jeremy Pruitt flamed out at Tennessee. Tosh Lupoi, now he's at Oregon now, but he had to go to the NFL and take a position coaching job. So Kirby Smart's the last one, and yeah, I mean, he might be the best coach.
But people are surprised that Rees took this job because he played at Notre Dame, right?
Right, but I do agree with you. Offensive coordinator. Let's just go through the list. Okay, Bill O'Brien became the OC of the New England Patriots. That is an upward move, and also Bill O'Brien had come off an NFL head coaching job, so that's an upward move. Steve Sarkisian became the head coach of Texas. Mike Locksley became the head coach at Maryland. Brian Dable became the OC of the Buffalo Bills, and he's now the head coach of the New York Giants. Lane Kiffin became a head coach at FAU. He's now the head coach at Ole Miss. So it does get you where you want to go.
I'm not a golf expert, but sometimes I wonder, like, if you go back and you watch Jack Nicklaus play and how good he was back then, like how good he would have been if his prime was with the clubs now and the technology now and the rangefinders and all the stuff that people have at their disposal, swing coaches, like data analysis that you can do to take a picture of your swing, all that stuff. And sometimes I wonder if being the head coach at Alabama and the offensive coordinator at Alabama with the players that they have offensively is like the equivalent of giving Jack Nicklaus a brand new titleless club.
I think that's probably a good analogy. You do work with better raw materials. You do work with better equipment. For
and like to mess up the Alabama offense, you just have to be completely and utterly incompetent, right?
Well, the other thing is the Alabama offense, and this is actually where the search became kind of interesting and why it took so long, because this is the first time in a while that they haven't really had somebody just kind of waiting in the wings from the family, from either the Saban tree or the Belichick tree, because the Belichick tree, remember, is essentially the Saban tree too. And they kind of, you can mix and match in there. And so this time they didn't have anybody. Ironically, if let's say Todd Monken were to leave Georgia, then Kirby can just pull up Mike Bobo. Like, he doesn't have to have a search. He could if he wants to, but he could just pull up Mike Bobo if Monken leaves. So this was a weird spot for Nick Saban, but the Alabama offense, such as it is, like, it is not somebody's offense. It's not Jim McElwain's offense, Doug Nussmeier's offense, Lane Kiffin's offense, Steve Sarkisian's offense, Brian Dable's offense, Bill O'Brien's offense, Mike Locksley's offense. It's not any of their offenses. It is a large playbook that each one added some stuff to, and they can, the new person, Tommy Rees, can pull from. Now, he can call whatever flavor of that he wants, and the expectation from Nick Saban will be to form it around the players you have. And you know, I wonder, because I think that's what took so long, but I still think that might be the best way to do it.
Yes. I mean, I think that promoting from within, even though it's worked for some coaches very well. I mean, I think Dabo Swinney's probably the gold standard of that.
Except he just fired the guy he promoted from within.
No, I know, but his entire career at Clemson has been promoting from within. And
he got Chad Morris from outside.
Isn't he promoted from within more than any coach in college football the last 7 years?
Probably.
I thought his whole main tenet of his philosophy was rewarding people who worked under him.
Well, but it hasn't always worked.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's bad.
They've made their biggest leaps when they brought somebody in from outside.
I would say that they are the exception to a program that relies on it. I think that not having a search and trying to get the best candidate nationally to fill in a spot is almost malpractice. and I know that people get comfortable with people have to earn their stripes or move up the ladder. And I feel like if you left the Athletic and they're like, well, we have to do an open search because we need to find more people who are gifted at column writing, and they didn't promote other people in the company, that would be a hard pill to swallow, right? Like, I'm not trying to say that that's not important, but in college football, when you are the pinnacle, when you are the peak, a top 5 program, being the offensive coordinator there is more than working up the ladder. I think that that's almost, when you have the resources and the money and the ability to hire anybody in college football, then Alabama and programs on that playing field have a responsibility to their fans and to the program to go vet the entire country and actually hire the best possible candidate. And if that's promoting from within after that search, then that's great. But if it's not, then they owe it to themselves to get the best player. Am I crazy?
They didn't have anybody in the analyst stable. The thing about the analyst stable is it's not necessarily somebody who's been in your program the entire time. Like at Alabama, those are people who've been other places. Like Saban grabs them as analysts so they can bring new ideas to Alabama.
Right.
For the same reasons that you're talking about. It was interesting because Saban, he always told me that the thing that made him the maddest about the Nick Saban rule, the one where they pulled the head coaches off the road in May, is that he didn't get to meet any assistant coaches anymore who didn't work for him already.
Right.
And that's how he kind of made his list. Every coach has their list of if somebody leaves, here's who I want to replace them. And it's made it harder for him and other head coaches to keep a list like that.
And that's what's made Nick Saban so brilliant, his ability to spot outside talent, right? And to talk to people and to make relationships and to understand here's what's lacking within our program. And we need somebody to come in and enhance it. And in order to do so, you have to have those relationships and the understanding of the climate around you. So, yeah, I could see that. I think that, people get mad at me for bringing up Ohio State too much, but I feel like that's a program that's in decline right now as a result of too much promoting within.
Well, Dwight Lewis says, I think Bama had a hard time choosing OC because Saban was looking for an OC with an old school, balanced, pro-style offensive philosophy. This kind of OC is a little rare today. Dwight, I don't think you've been watching much Alabama offense the last 5 years. Like, that's not what they do. They do the RPO stuff. I mean, now there are you're going to watch the Eagles do it in the Super Bowl, but Alabama, Alabama's been high tempo, spread it out. But the thing is, what makes them interesting is they can do all that other stuff. And so if you're an offensive coordinator, you have to come in and learn all of the stuff they do and what they call it. And you got to call it what they call it. But again, you can call whatever flavor of that you want. So,
well, I want to ask you something, Andy, because the Hog fan, who I love very much, just said in the comments, is Alabama going back to a less passing heavy and a finesse offense? I want to discuss the word finesse because it's something that I think is used quite a bit now.
Yeah.
And I want to know what you think that means. Does that mean like can't run very well and throws it a lot?
Can't get 3 yards when you need it on the ground, I guess.
And like, I don't know that Alabama, is he saying that, are they going back?
I mean, Alabama had 1 year of not a great offensive line and not they had a really good back in Jahmyr Gibbs. I would say that their weakness last year was in the passing game, offense. Right?
If anything, the weakness was the passing game.
Yes.
And like,
I don't have receivers who could separate.
If Milroe's the starter, I think that would be the exact opposite of what I would view finesse.
Yeah, if Milroe's the starter, they're going to look more like they look with Blake Sims at quarterback. That's the more accurate parallel. Because even Jalen's freshman year, and I think it's interesting because we were talking about Jalen and how he's evolved as a passer. I remember covering his first game of his freshman year. This is the one they started Blake Barnett against USC and Jerry World, and then Jalen comes in and he never lets go of the job. He threw great deep balls early in his freshman year at Alabama. Right. It feels like his passing sort of devolved over a couple of years. And you get to the national title game against Clemson his second year, or you get to, that was his freshman year. You get to the national title game against Georgia where he gets benched and it just looks.
When quarterbacks seem to regress, even if it's a little bit as a passer, it tends to be the quarterbacks that run designed play calls or designed runs more. Is that do you think there's a parallel between those two things?
I guess, but like,
why would anybody regress as a passer?
We're talking about Jalen as the Eagles quarterback, and he runs design runs for them all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to understand what occurs in that moment. Like, I mean, it happened with Keaton Slovis too, right? And he didn't run all that much, but like certain guys that
Slovis had an injury that changed like, his mechanics.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. I mean, JT Barrett forgot to throw his last 2 years.
He was never a great thrower, though.
But it got way worse.
It did.
If you go look at his first year as a freshman and some of the Michigan State game his freshman year, and then you go look at some of the games he had in his junior year, and it's like, was it because he was running the ball 25 times a game? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I do wonder, or defenses just got wise to what he liked and didn't like, and
because Tebow ran a ton and he improved as a passer over his career, right?
Yeah, but a lot of that's the people around him, and he
did play with the best player in college football history. So
Percy Harvin,
yeah.
I mean, like, you want to talk about who the most important player on those teams was? I think Percy was.
Am I out of line by saying he's the best college football player of all time?
Yes, I think
we should do a random ranking of something serious like that one day.
Bo Jackson, Herschel Walker. There's a lot of people who could fit that.
That's the hardest of these.
Cam Newton's 2010 year might have been the most dominant year I've ever seen anybody have.
Is about eras. Like, I didn't watch Bo Jackson like consciously.
Yeah,
I was too young, so I don't remember it. But Percy Harvin was so special. Okay.
Anthony in the chat asked a great question. This is the next logical question. We were going to get to this. Who do you guys think Notre Dame hires as OC? So there's a few options here, and you haven't looked. Pete Sampson and Matt Fortuna at The Athletic have a really good list, and I think the person is going to come from that list. So let's talk about some of these guys. I think Joe Moorhead was a name that his name has come up in all these because he's the Akron coach. And at this point you can put him in these ones for Miami he talked a little bit to Alabama, because we talked about this with Sean Lewis, who left Kent State as the head coach to become Colorado's OC. I think you're closer to being a head coach as the Notre Dame OC, like a Power 5 head coach again, as the Notre Dame OC than as the Akron head coach.
I think that was already proven by one of his colleagues.
Yep. So I think that's one. Gerard Parker, Notre Dame tight ends coach, came with Marcus Freeman. You could just move him up. Everybody knows him. I think that's a very distinct possibility right there.
Yeah, I saw Brandon Streeter's name on that list too.
Yeah. I don't know that that's going to happen. Maybe. Josh Gaddis's name is on. Paul Christ was an interesting name that they put on that list, and I am like, somebody's going to hire Paul Christ as an OC, right?
Yeah, I guess
at some point. Now he's living that buyout life, so it's got to be a pretty good gig, I would think. But
he got $11 million, didn't he?
Yeah, I would think that Paul Christ would be an effective OC somewhere.
I mean, Notre Dame does seem like, if he's going to be an assistant somewhere, a very good cultural fit for him too.
Yes. And here's another one it would be a good cultural fit for. And this one's very interesting that they put this name on this list. And I read it and I was like, ooh, this could be very interesting. Warren Ruggiero, the Wake Forest OC. Ari, who's the new quarterback at Notre Dame?
Oh, yeah.
Sam
Hartman. Sorry.
Speaking of which, Sam Hartman put out a video shortly after the Tommy Rees news broke. I will play it for you now. If you are listening to the audio version of the podcast, there's no sound, but it is Sam Hartman doing deadlifts. And when a quarterback does deadlifts, he is deadly serious. So he's in the Notre Dame training center. He's in his Notre Dame gear. There's a little Notre Dame watermark on the video. This is some serious business here. Sam Hartman is going to get it done for Notre Dame. What if his OC came from Wake Forest to help him do it?
Was a slow mesh coming to South Bend or what?
Oh, do it! I don't think so, but yes, do it.
Do it. I'd watch it.
Marcus Freeman.
Do we have the video? I wanted to see it. I've never seen it.
I just played it. I actually think that part of the reason Sam Hartman is in South Bend now is he would like to show what he can do outside of that Wake Forest offense. So I don't know that he wants necessarily that offense. Plus, when you have that level of offensive linemen that you have,
You don't need to do that.
Notre Dame has very good offensive linemen.
They do.
Very good. So
yeah,
that could be.
I wonder if they have a receiver.
Well, that's the question. Now, listen, that offense looked a lot more interesting in the Gator Bowl. Tyler Buckner did a good job with it in that game against South Carolina. So they're not incapable.
Yeah. I mean, I think Notre Dame has been one of the most consistent programs in the last decade. And the one thing that I think they've struggled with is having elite skill position players to match up with the big dogs when they play them. And I don't know, like, who was the best receiver at Notre Dame in the last 10 years? Am I forgetting somebody remarkable? I can't even think of anybody that's really
the guy from Canada who he's big. He plays for the Steelers, right? Or played for the Steelers. Why am I blinking on names?
Chase Claypool.
Chase Claypool. Thank you.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Mapletron.
So yeah. I mean, we'll see what they have out there, but I feel like Notre Dame is like five-star prospects, 2 or 3 skill position players on offense, and 2 dynamic, one dynamic defensive lineman and 1 dynamic corner and safety away from being legitimately awesome. And I just feel like Marcus Freeman is trying to get those guys in. That's why the Peyton Bowen thing was so tough for them. But they're good. They've got the linemen. They win 10, 11 games with average skill talent. I feel like they're not that far off from being really, really legitimately scary to Alabama good.
Yeah, Notre Dame's issue's been depth. And here's what makes it interesting. And I did this question in my mailbag. Brian from Buford, Georgia, probably the best question asker we have among the commentariat, other than he might have the most creative questions. He just might. So he had a question 2 years ago about if you meet a genie and he says you can wave a wand and it will guarantee your team one national title over the next 20 years. How many programs should do that, and how many should say, "Don't bother, we'll win more than one on our own"?
It was 4.
It was a real short list.
What was your answer? Yeah.
Back then it was Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, LSU, and Georgia, and then maybe Oklahoma. That was the list. So Brian asked the question again. Brian's a Georgia fan, by the way, and this was pre-Georgia winning that first national title, and he was like, he's basically saying he and his brother were arguing about that. Which one should they choose? And I was like, don't wave the wand. You guys might win more than one, and now they won 2. But
in a row.
his question was, with the new playoff coming in and with the way NIL is affecting recruiting and everything, do you change that list? And I said, yeah, you change that list, because I don't think Notre Dame should wave the wand. Like, they might be able to build their depth.
You don't think that Notre Dame would wave the wand? I think they would wave it in a second.
To get one national title?
In the next 20 years, yes.
I think they should roll the dice and try for more.
I would wave the wand. If
I said Notre Dame. I said Oklahoma's no longer on the maybe list. Like, they might be able to do it. It's all talent acquisition. Notre Dame does have to get deeper. Marcus Freeman does have to do a good job recruiting, but these things are cyclical. So their time might be coming. And these are programs that could do that. These are programs that have demonstrated over the years that they can recruit.
I think there's only 4 programs that shouldn't wave the wand.
Oh, I think there's more that shouldn't wave the wand now.
No, I disagree. I think it's going to be harder to win a national championship now.
If you say so.
But it'll be cool. I'm just like, I want to know what team that's not in this select club of 4 or 5 teams is going to win the next national championship. That's another question I have for you. Like, if somebody asked
LSU.
So a top 5 easiest place to recruit in America?
Yeah. Well, why don't you have LSU on your list? It should be, of teams that don't need to wave the wand.
It might be 5.
No.
But LSU
more than any other than Alabama, I guess, should not wave the wand. LSU has won 3 national titles since 2003.
Yeah, I think that LSU could be in that list and maybe make it 5.
LSU should be on the list.
Because
That's the
LSU's
list.
entire national championships of the playoff era, their only playoff berth, came after they transferred in really good players.
Yeah.
You know,
they won the SEC West in Brian Kelly's first year. I'm guessing a couple good recruiting classes and they can win another national title, which seems to be how they go. Like once every 4 years,
like,
they're playing for it.
One of the teams that recruits one of the top 3 classes is almost a decade out from winning one. Like winning a national championship is really hard. And I know that Alabama and Georgia has made it seem easy. But if you could win one in a 20-year period, I think I would take it at 99% of the places.
You wouldn't do it at Ohio State though, right? You wouldn't win the one at Ohio State.
I guess maybe not, but like they're in danger of going 15 years without one.
If you only win one, it's the same thing as if you wave the wand.
I know,
so you
didn't
lose anything
0.
there.
Like I think that like if somebody said, Andy, you got to put your life at stake here. Do you think Notre Dame's going to win a national championship in the next 20 years? You wouldn't bet yes, would you?
Oh, I think there'd be a chance. Would I bet my life on it? No.
No, I know. I always like to use that.
It's
my version of truth serum.
Yeah, I do think there'd be a chance though. Because here's the thing. If NIL does delete some depth from the Alabamas and the Georgias, and we're not talking
that's almost
about
as important as being good yourself is making them less superpowery.
Exactly. And can we agree that's kind of what's happened to Alabama?
I don't know. They just signed the most 5-star prospects in the history of.
Yeah, they signed those classes every year. Did they have special receivers this year?
No, that was the one position group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's possible this could happen in certain years.
We're just not seeing the results of the recruiting rankings change. So I think the only thing is, do you think that the portal will change it?
I do. I think it's making the market more efficient, and where it hurts the superpowers is Drew Sanders doesn't stay at Alabama.
Will there be
like what if one of those great pass rushers had gotten hurt this year, and they just had Drew Sanders to plug in? Like that's what they used to have every time.
The question I have for you is, and this is the thing that we said about TCU before and after the national championship game on the taco bus with Dan, that there are very good teams year in and year out that are just like TCU. Gritty, tough teams that find ways to win in different ways, go undefeated, or get to a point where they can make the playoff, and they are just really good. This year's Michigan team, this year's TCU team, last year's Michigan team, last year's Cincinnati team. Will there ever be a point in time in the next 20 years in college football where there isn't a monster in the sport? Like where the end of the road TCU was playing a team more like Michigan and less like Georgia.
I think the group at the top is going to get bigger. There will still be a wide separation between the group at the top and the next group, but I think they're going to add some more teams to the group at the top.
So you think that the top 1% or the three teams that stand hovering above everybody else, which is the way it's been for the last.
They're going to lose a few, which will bring them down. The other ones will gain a couple, which will bring them up. So what I'm talking about here are the ones that have been kind of right on the edge there. So but
if you think about like the playoff this year, the teams that 2 out of the 4 teams.
Ari, I'm talking about this system has been in place for 2 years.
No, I know.
When it's been in place for 7 or 10.
I know, but we're not 7 prospects off right now. We're talking about major roster reconstruction. Because it's like you could have took away 5 5-star prospects.
You just said what Notre Dame needed, okay?
Yeah.
If over the course of 5 years, Notre Dame gets 5 guys that Georgia... This is what happened to Alabama, by the way. Georgia got the guys they would have gotten. That's what happened. So
Georgia is built like old Alabama, though.
Right. With the guys that Alabama would have had.
But I think, wasn't Alabama still the most talented team in college football this year?
They were. Did they look like it on the field?
Well, they did not. They might have had they made the playoff, but they didn't.
It might just be, Ari, that if you're in the top 5 or 6 in the recruiting rankings, you're probably okay. Like, then it comes down to how you coach them or how you develop them or whether they stay or whether they decide they want to transfer. Like, all of that matters.
Well, the thing that will fix college football for most fans would be is if you got rid of a team that had a 35 or 40 player blue chip advantage. Like, that can't like, if that exists, then they can't lose. And the reason why Georgia loses sometimes and Alabama loses sometimes and Ohio State loses sometimes on that stage in the playoff is because they're playing each other.
Right.
So if there's a
Ari,
time,
if you take 4 or 5 off of each of them and add 4 or 5 to the next group below,
but I'm trying to tell you
that
they
can all beat each other in the playoff.
If you took 7 5-star prospects off of Georgia's roster and placed them on TCU,
I'm not saying 7 5-star prospects. I'm saying 7 people who can play. 7 people who are in the 2 deep. It's the depth that makes them.
I know, but
invincible.
I'm trying to tell you that the difference between Georgia and TCU is far more than 7.
I'm not talking about TCU.
Who are you talking about? LSU?
Michigan, Penn State, LSU, Auburn, Oklahoma.
But it's probably even more for those.
It's not more. They have better players than TCU.
No, I know, but I don't know that if you put 7 blue chip players on Penn State's roster this year, they could beat Georgia. And took them off. Yeah. I mean, it's like compound interest is what you're saying, where it happens year over year over
That's
year.
what happened to Alabama with Georgia.
I don't know that I agree with that.
I definitely agree with that. I already laid it out in multiple columns. I told you which players it was.
But you can't say that that's what happened if Alabama was still more talented.
Was Alabama more talented? Because according to the Your Precious 24/7 composite, they were.
Wasn't Alabama number 1? Yeah.
Yeah. Were they more talented? Would you which roster would you have rather had this year?
Well, based on what I have on raw material, then probably Georgia. Because of what I know and what I saw. I would have loved to see Alabama and Georgia play in a semifinal.
So is it
possible
possible
it would have looked a lot like the Ohio State game?
That the recruiting ranking isn't the only piece of it? That, again, we establish a cut line, and then what's above the cut line.
But what we're talking about is welcoming the clear second tier.
Ari, I know you're convinced that no one else will ever be good except the people that are good now. But history tells us that changes. And things go in cycles, and coaches retire, and coaches get fired, and things change. So I promise you, some of the schools I said that should maybe not wave the wand are going to win some national titles.
I wish we could do some long-term bets here on that. That would be fun.
Well, we're going to be retired by the end of the 20-year period, so don't
I'm
worry.
not.
I will. So
no, I know. It's just like, it's hard to fathom. I'm not saying that it's not going to, like, Alabama isn't going to be.
You
Alabama.
are a prisoner of the moment right now.
The moment's been my entire adult life, though.
Okay. I was an adult when Mike Shula coached Alabama.
Yeah.
And people were like, why would anybody take that job?
I think Alabama's
That's the craziest job to take. Those people are nuts. You're stupid if you take that job. That was legitimately what people said. That was a talking point in columns, on TV shows, on the radio, right before Nick Saban took the Alabama job.
You correct me if I'm wrong, because I can see that you're fired up, and I love that. We got fired up, Andy, today. What I think is happening in the sport right now, though, is a self-perpetuating thing that didn't exist, especially now because we have the data at our fingertips. Like in 2003 or 2004, when's the last time Alabama, what was the Shula era? 2004? 2003?
2006 was the last season.
Okay. During that time, the draft picks weren't building like a snowball. The momentum of these programs and who they are and what they have and what they've produced in the recruiting world is different. The way that recruiting works is different. The camps that exist is different.
Okay.
Like everything that predicates
things
the accumulation
changed,
of talent.
But they'll never change again, is what
No,
you're
they
saying.
can change again.
Okay.
I'm saying it's hard to fathom. It's hard to fathom how it will.
If only there'd been some major structural changes in the rules of the sport
Yeah.
that could force some big changes.
Okay, maybe you're right. You're right.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. 20 years.
It's dawning on you that 20 years is a long time.
20 years is a long time, but it's just
Tell me what you were doing in 2003.
Worse.
Tell me what you were doing in 2003.
I don't think you want to know what I was doing.
Tell me what you were doing in 2003.
Seeing good movies.
We've established that.
I was working at Lids in the mall.
There you go.
I had a friend that worked at the Dairy Queen at the booth.
So
next
this
to us.
is lids where your love of fine resort hats started, because you're like, I don't want to wear the
No,
new
I used to
era Major
collect.
League
I
hat.
used to collect the new era Major League hats, but I found myself enjoying snapbacks way more than I ever liked fitteds, because fitteds, as you wear them, they kind of, wilt down a little bit. And it's
Also,
just
your
like,
head gets bigger if you gain weight. It gets
yeah,
smaller if you lose
it's
weight.
like
You have
in
to
the
buy new
summer, they're
hats.
tighter than they are in the winter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like the snapback thing. And I made a friend at the Dairy Queen that was next to us. And all we had to do was like buy him one hat a month, and he would just like bring over like all the Dairy Queen leftovers and the chicken fingers and
That's
and
tremendous.
it was a hell of
What a deal.
So I broke my iPhone, I lost my iPhone on a Southwest flight. You remember this?
I do. This was
And
not in 2003, because it didn't
This
exist yet.
happened. This happened a month ago.
Okay.
And Southwest found my phone a month later.
Oh, wow. That's
Which
awesome.
I guess is a miracle. So I had an insurance plan. I replaced the phone, got a new one a few days after I lost it, and then a month later, I got my old phone back in the mail. You don't know this, because I didn't know this, but one of the best places you can trade your phone in for money is GameStop. Did you know that? They buy devices.
I knew they bought all the video game devices, so
No, they buy like cell phones. So I went, and there was a Domino's next to this GameStop.
Mhm.
And the dude like brought over 5 pizzas like at 11 a.m. and goes, "Here you go." And I was like, this is the best co-tenant of all time. Like, if I could go back in time and afford my current lifestyle working a retail job next to a Dairy Queen, and I could make money or make a deal and barter with the guy next door. I mean, that man, life was great.
So how much we need to go through the college football staff of the Athletic and figure out what mall stores we all worked in.
Where did you work?
Champ
Champs?
Sports.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
It's Champ Sports, Ari. It's not just Champs.
Champ Sports.
When you answer the phone, Champ Sports.
Yeah, Champ Sports, sorry, was right next to mine was Hat Club, which they have in Phoenix. I just say lids so people don't get confused. It's the same exact thing. You pay a membership, you get 20% off, the whole deal. And there's a bunch of stores in the Southwest. And then there was a Champs right next to it. Champ Sports next to it. I always felt like working at Champ Sports would have been a better job than my place, because like they had all the gym shorts and the shoes and the t-shirts, and like back then too, they used to sell like regular clothes like jeans and stuff, didn't they?
No, that they did. They had a period where they did. That was not when I worked there. When I worked there, they still sold baseball gloves and stuff like that. So like the wrestler Earthquake, John Tenta, I sold him a baseball glove for his son.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I used to kill it. We used to have competitions at work where, you have to like ask everybody, do you want $1? And I'll spray the hat like a Scotch Guard for your hat. And I used to like not tell people that I was doing it. And I would just like give them 20% off when they didn't have a membership, and then add the spray under their hat. And I broke like spray records at my company.
and that's the thing. Like the add-on stuff matters to those retail chains. Like, so the Kinney Shoe Corporation ran Foot Locker, Champs, and one other mall shoe store, and their thing was multiple sales. It didn't matter what it was, but you had to sell something else. Like they come in to buy a pair of shoes, you better get them to buy some socks or get them to buy this. And the spray. And
I don't know how you were back then, but I was obsessed with my numbers. Shocking enough, I'm obsessed with them now.
It hasn't changed.
But like, I don't know why. I was a 16-year-old kid and I wasn't making commission, so I don't know why.
All I know is December 23rd, 1995, I sold more than any human being should sell on one day in the mall. I sold like 12 grand worth of stuff.
What date?
December 23rd, 1995. People were buying some last minute gifts.
Wow. And it was all because of your customer service, right?
It was all because they were freaking desperate.
Yeah. But Jordans were a thing back then, and you guys always used to get the Jordans. Was that before they bought Foot Locker bought them?
Foot Locker and Champs were the same chain at that time.
So were you wearing the ref outfit?
No, we didn't have to wear the ref outfit. We had khaki pants and a
blue
solid color
V-neck.
polo.
Oh, no, I thought you had to wear that V-neck with the
that was later.
Okay.
It was a really nice solid color polo with Champ Sports on the sleeve.
Yeah.
And so when I started there, it was in Orlando. So the Air Penny, the Penny Air Maxes were brand new, the black ones. and the Jordan 11 Concords had just come out, the white with the black patent leather, the first Jordan 11s. And so we saw like my first day was the last pair of Jordan 11s went out the door. And then the black Jordan 11s came in, all black. And I don't think a customer ever got one of those.
I think that still goes on. They have these raffles now. But there was a store, and I think it used to be a national chain called Field of Dreams. Have you ever heard of Field of Dreams?
Field of Dreams was like
they had
autograph memorabilia store.
Yeah, but and the one in Arizona, they had all the memorabilia and stuff, but they also had a bunch of hats. They had jerseys. They had shoes. Like, it was like this cool sports store. And that was always my dream back then, to either work there or EB Games. Do you remember EB Games?
Oh, yeah. Electronics Boutique.
Yeah, they used to, that was the GameStop before GameStop took.
I wanted to work in one of the record stores. Sam Goody.
Yeah, Sam Goody was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I call them record stores. And I remember when they were record stores, like you walked in and it was records, and then they had tapes, and the tapes had the little security thing on them. So
Kyrie Irving just got traded to the Mavericks.
Yes.
The city is buzzing right now.
Dorian Finney-Smith was one of the people he was traded for. Former Gator.
Yeah, I saw somebody like tweet like they should trade him to Atlanta for Trae Young. I'm like, who's trading him for Trae Young? Are you crazy? And I don't know anything about the NBA, but Kyrie Irving's basically like torpedoed every team he's ever been on. So
Spencer Dinwiddie is the other person, and a first rounder and multiple second rounders.
Man, did you ever sell black on black Air Force Ones to crazy people?
Matthew, see, no. So the Airmore Up Tempo was out in 96, early 96. And I had to sell those. Those are the ones, they're the giant high tops. They have, and they just spell out the word air on them. They're hideous. They sell them now.
They still have them now. Yeah. Do you, do you remember the video store Suncoast?
Oh yeah. I love Suncoast. Because
I would have wanted to work at Suncoast.
You could buy movie t-shirts
and posters and all that stuff. Yeah. Yep. God, man, those were the golden days.
Well, now you can just go on Amazon and get the movie t-shirt.
No, I know, but like the vibe in that store is the same vibe as you got in Blockbuster. And
yeah,
when you're a 16-year-old, you'll never understand what that feels like if you didn't experience it.
Yeah, you'll never, and we can't explain it to you because we're old.
We were so excited, like when you would go there like on a Friday and you had a buddy with you and you guys were gonna have a sleepover when you're like 14 and you're gonna watch movies and order pizza and play video games. That was peak life. Okay.
All right, we got a random ranking to do. This
is
one that we started talking about the other day, and we figured we needed to save it for this. So I had a text Ari before we started recording to set up some ground rules, because this is your five best states in which to reside. But the question was, is it part of that would you rather question of you're never allowed to leave this state, or you're allowed to go other places on vacations or, for work or wherever? And so Ari texted back. He said, you're allowed to go other places. So that makes the list a little different for me.
Like if you had to pick where you could live, and then you get all the, just like in real life, like you get all the advantages of living there, then climate, proximity to places, all those things, it'd be just as like doing it that way. So I think that if you were mad before about my take about how nothing's going to change, that you could talk me out of, I think that we're going to get fired up here. I'm going to get fired up because I already know what's not your number one, and there's only one answer.
Yeah, it's not even on my list.
I feel like you're trolling people.
I'm trolling you.
But you don't actually believe that. So put them on the list.
No, all the places in California that I'd like to live are too crowded. So no.
You think living in Del Mar is too crowded?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
So, number 5, Ari, for you.
This is it was really, really hard for me to pick out number 5. But I just felt like I'd have to do it because it would just be a dream. Mm-hmm. Hawaii.
There you
go. This is completely isolated, and you can't go anywhere unless you get on a 6-hour airplane ride. But Hawaii would make my list just for the sake of, like, I've seen Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I know what it would be like to live there. It's paradise. Don't take life too seriously. And, the thing that I want to know about your list too is, like, I didn't consider finances at all. So, like, some people might have done their list of, like,
no, I mean, it's expensive. It's expensive if you want to live in the nice parts of all the states. I'm
rich in these scenarios.
Expensive, yeah.
So like, I'm not taking money. Like, I live in Hawaii the right way. And I think that it would probably be the least convenient place in the world to live, or in America to live in, but it has to be on a list somewhere.
I agree. So 5 for me, and this is where I needed you to explain whether I could go somewhere else or I'm
Okay.
there forever. 5 for me is Utah. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous in the winter and the summer.
Mm-hmm.
You can ski, you can do all the outdoor stuff in the summer.
Spoken like a guy who just got back from Park City.
That's true. And that might be I might be living around
Prisoner of
there.
the moment.
Yeah. I might be living in Park City or Kimball Junction or Heber City, and we'll see. But you have the big city amenities not far away in Salt Lake City. You have a big, beautiful airport that you can go anywhere you need to go. Easy flights to everywhere on the West Coast. So I just think it'd be a really nice place to live. You could get a pretty decent sized piece of land. Again,
Salt Lake's expensive as hell, and so is Park City.
Oh yeah, but you don't have to live. Like, I wouldn't live downtown Park City. Like, you can live outside of there, and it's not that bad.
But like, I didn't realize this till I went. But Park City is only like 40 minutes away from Salt Lake.
That's the thing. It's a 35-minute drive if there's not a snowstorm going on. So it's a really convenient situation.
Yeah, my wife's brother lives there, and I love visiting, and that's actually a really good state.
Matthew C in the chat, Wasatch Brewery makes some good beer. Absolutely. Polygamy Porter, baby. Polygamy Porter Nitro is spectacular. Wasatch Brewery.
Well, I didn't hear the word you just said.
Oh, Polygamy Porter? Yeah. Their motto is bring some home to the wives.
That's hilarious. Okay. My number 4 is Arizona. I live there. I grew up there. I'm partial to it, but I think you've got a beautiful weather 9 or 10 months out of the year. Your winter is the summer there because it's so hot, which can be cured by a pool. It's aesthetically beautiful, and every place on my list is aesthetically beautiful. And you've got proximity to California. You got proximity to Las Vegas. You have outdoor activities. You've got hiking. You've got snow. You've got snowboarding. And it's just a really pretty place to live. And I'm happy I grew up there.
All righty. My number 4 is Hawaii. I have lived on an island before. When I was a kid, we lived in Key Largo for 4 years.
That's so badass.
It's a very different island life than Hawaii, for sure, because you can just drive to the mainland and then you're in a huge city that is Miami. But I could live on an island. I could absolutely live on an island and be cool with that and not go to the mainland, but every once in a while and take the 6-hour flight.
How long of a drive is Key Largo to Miami? Is it like an hour?
It's about an hour. It's not that well. It's to get to Homestead. It's probably like 45 minutes. And then you keep driving up to Miami. But it's
your childhood was Bloodline in my head.
Oh,
have you seen the show
Bloodline got so much right about the Keys. So much.
It did.
Yeah. Oh, no, it sort of went off the rails.
Well, yeah, the last season was
season 3 was horrible. Season 2 was off the rails too. But like season 1, when you had Coach Taylor just sweating through everything.
Coach Taylor, yeah.
They nailed it. Like, and that place is in Isla Mirada. So that wasn't far from where my parents worked. Like, my parents worked at Coral Shores High School in Tavernier. And so there are a lot of familiar places there.
It's just raining all the time. It's always pouring.
Well, I mean, it's Florida. It rains every day, certain time of the year. So,
but like, it's like aggressive pouring rain.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're used to that.
Yeah. Because there's so many scenes in that show where it was just like, I thought you lived on a beautiful island. It's always raining. And
no, they nailed the weather.
Yeah.
But it only rains for an hour and then it's done. And then it's back to being beautiful.
My number 3, speaking of that, is Florida. There are 2 states in America that have elite level beaches.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Florida and California. When I'm talking
Florida, you can actually go in the water and not freeze.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I've been in the water in California too and not frozen, but it does get cooler.
I would say, can you go in the water? How much?
Here's the drawback of Florida, and I'm going to just bring it to you right now to your face. I know you love Florida. Mm-hmm. It has the worst weather in the summer of any place in America. Mm-hmm. I would take a winter in Wisconsin over a summer in Florida.
Well, that's what we do to keep most people out. Like,
yeah, you don't want me there because
if the weather were better, there'd be more people, and we don't want more people.
Britt and I went to Fort Lauderdale. We stayed at one of the beachfront hotels in Fort Lauderdale for my birthday. I didn't. It was the W though. I should have. And I remember I walked outside and it was 8 p.m. It was dark, and I felt like somebody sprayed me with a hose. Like, it felt like I was walking in a sauna. And like, it's nice when you're in the pool and Florida, but that aside, still has beautiful beaches.
And we'll get to this we'll get to this in a little bit, but for me, if it's July and I'm in an air-conditioned building for too long and I get a little chilly, walking outside and feeling that wave of wet heat hit you is the greatest feeling in the world. You're just like, ah.
Yeah, and I don't know what it's like I haven't spent much time in your neck of the woods. Most of my time in Florida has been in South Florida and Boca and Fort Lauderdale and Miami, and I spent some time in Jacksonville. But like, it's beautiful there. They've got amazing resorts. It's legit beaches. People should vacation there. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying that other beaches like in Oregon.
You ain't built to live here. Don't worry. You ain't built.
Are you
for
trying
it.
to like come down on me because
No. You're just
I don't
not.
love your state as much as you?
No, you're just not built for it.
It made my list.
Not built for it.
But what I'm saying is the beaches in Oregon and Washington and Virginia and all the northern states on the East Coast, they're the beach. It's pretty, but you don't have that tropical, beautiful blue water beaches that you get.
Because you're
in
not
those two states
that close to the Caribbean. So
yeah. So that's Florida to me is just a beautiful vacation spot, and they have Wawa there now too.
We do have a lot of Wawas here. Number 3 for me, your state where you currently reside, Texas.
Interesting.
For the barbecue alone. Not just for the barbecue, but you get a lot in Texas. Like there's a lot. It has a lot of different flavors. Like if you still want to live in the South, you can live in East Texas. Houston is a giant cultural melting pot. You have coastal areas. You can live in the hill country if you want pretty views. Like there's a lot of ways to go in Texas. And I feel like that is pretty important, like having some variety, but also no state income tax.
Yeah, Texas is a good place to live. It's the #1 fast food state in America. I'll give you that. Because they've got
the fast food part of it is that important to me.
Well, I'm just telling you, it is. They've got everything. They've got every single restaurant that you could imagine. And I've only been here for a few years, but to me, the hardest part about Texas is that there's nothing aesthetically pleasing about it. Like Dallas is a pretty city because there's some nice architecture, but like it's flat.
Have you been to the hill country?
I mean, there's some places in Austin,
It's
right?
Gorgeous.
Like,
the hill country is gorgeous.
what, like down in the Austin area?
It's past Austin. Like the real hill country is out past San Antonio.
Yeah. And like it's like I know too. It's like El Paso and Dallas are two different planets, and they're in the same state. It's the only state I think you can drive 8 hours in and not leave the state.
Galveston, Corpus Christi, all that it's all in this state, and it's all different.
Yeah, but like living here in Dallas, it's like to me, it's like I don't have any sort of relationship with Galveston or Corpus Christi. I think for me to get to Corpus Christi, it would take me 7 hours.
Yeah,
and it's like that. So like
if I'm gonna
pick a place to live, I'm gonna pick up like if 7 hours from. You could drive to Vegas and LA in the same trip in 7 hours from Scottsdale. So that's just like I don't have any relationship to those places. And San Diego from Phoenix. That's why Arizona was on my list, not to mention it was beautiful itself. But I've got a state that I don't think you're going to think that I had on here. Really high up.
Number 2.
North Carolina, number 2.
North Carolina is basically number 6 on my list. And it's a place realistically, if my wife said we need to move, we need to go somewhere, I would probably suggest the Research Triangle is one of our 3 finalists.
Listen, they've got mountains.
Mm-hmm. They got beaches.
Mm-hmm. Raleigh-Durham is one of the best cities, I think. The food is great. The people are great. It's one of the most aesthetically beautiful states in America. I think it's like my number 1. Everyone knows what my number 1 is going to be.
Yeah,
I'm not spoiling anything here.
Right.
North Carolina doesn't get the credit it deserves for the pure beauty that it has, like the Smoky Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's such a diverse place.
Yeah.
And like I feel like living there. If you lived in Raleigh-Durham, you'd have access to a lot of amazing things.
Matthew C.
The
Research
lakes,
Triangle over Asheville. Yes, I like Research Triangle over hippies. Yes, I can buy craft beer in Raleigh.
Yeah,
it's
but
cool.
Also too, Asheville's not that far away from Raleigh, is it?
Right.
I feel like you could have anything you wanted if you lived in Raleigh-Durham. That you like the lakes there are insanely pretty too. And they've got mountain towns, they've got beach towns. Great state. I love going there. And they've got city, you've got small town, you've got beach, you got mountain. I mean, what could be better than that?
I'm glad you mentioned that because my number 2 is also a Carolina, South Carolina, my original home state.
Okay.
And beaches all the whole coast. You got your Dirty Myrtle, you got your Hilton Head, you got everything in between. You got Charleston, you got Greenville, which is a little
I've
different
never spent any time in
flavor.
South Carolina. Really, I've been to a few places, but I've never been to Hilton Head or Myrtle Beach for long periods of time. Like, can the beaches there stack up with the beaches in Florida from an aesthetically beautiful standpoint? Like, is it blue water, tan sand?
They're very similar to East Coast beaches in Florida. Nothing stacks up to the Gulf Coast beaches in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar to like Daytona Beach or New Smyrna Beach.
Okay.
So that's the difference. I mean, the Gulf Coast Florida beaches are a completely different animal. So, but South Carolina, and here's my thing, and I know there's a lot of people who grew up where I did or live where I live that feel this way. I don't want to be cold. I realize I had Utah on my list. I think I could live with it. I think I could learn to live with it, but I don't know if I actually could.
I feel like Utah's either insanely cold or insanely hot.
They've
got a pretty fall there.
Like South Carolina and Florida
Utah gets hot as hell.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Not as hot as Columbia, South Carolina in July.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I just, it's weird because, and I think for the same reason that I can't imagine living in Michigan, and there are people who grew up in Michigan that can't imagine living in Florida or South Carolina, like it's where I'm from. So it's what I'm used to. And that's what's comfortable to me. And so like, I can't imagine living in your climate, just like you can't imagine living in my climate.
Yeah. Number one is the only answer that it could be. I mean, it's just like San Diego and Orange County and Manhattan Beach, all the way up to San Francisco. You got Lake Tahoe. You've got mountains. You've got beach.
I might want to
How
go.
it's not on your list
Go
is
Monterey. Monterey, I might be able to do.
Yeah, it's like if you think that LA is too crowded, I understand that, but there are 19 beach towns between LA and San Diego that you could live in that aren't as crowded. And like the fact that it's not on your list is insulting.
Then my work here is done.
Yeah.
I have succeeded.
And also you're like 4 hours away from Vegas. You know, it just, my life goal is to live there at least half the year at one point.
You could live there now.
Yeah, well, you know, there's other people that I've got to consider too. So it's a thing too. It's just like when I was on the Ohio State beat, all I wanted to do was get a job. And like I applied like 4 times to like the Orange County Register and different places just to be the USC beat writer. I basically wanted to be what Antonio Morales is for us. And then the second I got put in this position where I could live anywhere in the country, I met Britt and she had to be in Dallas.
Yeah.
So like I would have lived in Phoenix.
But she has a job that may or may not tie her to
long term, maybe not, but right now a large portion of the
but
places that
she has a job that can be done anywhere. And in fact, the bigger the city, the better. So a place
California would work for her, but also
yes,
we want to maintain the problem is that like if we could technically move to California tomorrow and make it work, but we would not be able to enjoy the lifestyle that we have right now if we move
which
there.
You have become accustomed. Yes, I got you.
So like it's like we could go live in a 1,100 square foot shack somewhere inland.
Now, I didn't really because I was considering like you can live in the best of all these places.
Yeah, that's what I was considering.
But like your number 2 North Carolina, my number 2 South Carolina, my number 1 are places you can live pretty well.
Yeah,
for regardless of your income. So all right. So we know what my number 1 is. It is the place where I currently live. It is Florida, and it is the greatest state in the world. It is the weirdest state in the world. Everything here can kill you. Everybody here probably can kill you, but it's tremendous.
It's the state form of grab ass.
Exactly. You have the South. If you want to be in the South, you can be up in the Panhandle. You can be at a beautiful beach and still be in the South. That's if you're, off 30A, Destin, Panama City. You can also be on a beautiful beach and be in essentially South Boston or Chicago. Well, it'll be the north side of Chicago, probably those people coming, but because of the transplants. So if you live down Fort Myers, Naples, then you're living with a lot of either Midwesterners or Northeasterners who've moved down that way, but you have gorgeous beaches everywhere. You can be in Miami, one of the most vibrant cities in the world. Beautiful beaches, beautiful scenery, beautiful everything. You can go up to Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, and then the crowds start to thin out as you head north, but you're still on the beach. You can be in Brevard County, which is like Melbourne, Titusville, Cocoa Beach, those places, and you've got all of that, and it's a very different world than 150 miles south or 100 miles north. And so it's a lot of everything. Like for the similar reason why you like California, where you can get whatever flavor you want out of the state. Now, you mentioned the weather. Summer sucks. I'm not going to lie. But again, I just feel like it keeps a lot of the people that we wouldn't want here away.
Oh yeah, all the people that you want to keep out of Florida. Like it isn't a complete cluster of madness at all times.
You gotta learn.
Florida would be worse off if I lived there. But the guy who let a crocodile loose through a Wendy's drive-through window is fine.
It was only a 3-footer, and it was an alligator. There's a big difference between an alligator and a crocodile.
The things that happen in Florida, though, are more outrageous than the things that happen anywhere else.
Absolutely. Andrew Cooper, the only issue with Florida is no hiking. Go running, Andrew.
Well, the thing that's funny about Florida is that like all those places that you just mentioned are different. But it's like in California, you can be in the middle of the desert in Palm Springs. You can be on the coast. You can be in Lake Tahoe. You can be in the mountains. You can be in a big city in San Francisco. Like it's all very different. And like the thing is like, if you could only be in one state and never leave it, I think you would pick Florida too.
Ari, I don't think you've ever been to Sop Shoppy. It's in the same state as Miami.
Yeah. I don't think you're getting what I'm saying here. I'm talking about like topography and scenery. And it's like, being in Lake Tahoe feels like
you're saying you want some mountains. I got you.
There's no mountains in Florida.
I have mountains in Utah.
There's
my number 5.
I can't believe the lack of mountains on your entire list, to be honest.
I've never lived around mountains. Mountains are something I vacation in.
Yeah. Well,
like the idea of living around mountains is strange to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up near mountains, so.
That's not true. I lived in Knoxville for 2 years. So the Great Smoky Mountains are right there. Beautiful views. Beautiful.
I just like how you can be in Malibu and get mountain views and ocean views at the same table.
Courtney Love wrote a great song about it.
Florida has, they also have those water moccasins. What did you call those?
Cottonmouths.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Okay, well, hey, you know what? I respect that Florida's your number one. And you know what I love for you, Andy, is that you get to live there.
That's exactly right.
You get to live in the place that's number one for you. What I don't respect is your complete and utter disregard for California. And I find it personally
California.
offensive.
It's a great place to visit. I love New York. It's a great place to visit. I just don't want to live there.
I find it offensive that you didn't put it on your list.
Yeah, I left it off the list because you find it offensive. Who wouldn't want to live in San Diego, Ari? Come on. That place is amazing.
So it's number 5 on your list, at least.
Maybe.
Okay.
All right, everybody. I hope you're living the dream today. We got a big week for you. We're only getting started. So we will talk to you again very soon.